All right, here we go. This is the last of the 3 videos on the Cold War, at least the beginnings of the Cold War. Now taking a look more at the American perspective, we take a look at the period of time in America known as the Red Scare. Now, the Red Scare was this terrible time in America. Well, not really, but everybody thought it was. Everybody thought that communism was going to come into America and take over, and people were scared. People were scared of everybody. People were scared that, you know, their neighbors were watching them, that their mailman was going through their trash, and all of this kind of stuff, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense, but people were scared. People were scared of people spying on them. So, because of that fear, people started to spy on each other, and people started to point fingers, and people started to accuse one another of doing these terrible, terrible things as far as trying to overthrow the government or bring communism into America. So the U.S. government decided to go ahead and create an organization inside the government called the House of Un-American Activities. And the House of Un-American Activities went after these alleged communists, these people that were believed to be trying to bring communism into America. And so what we see here is we see a group of Hollywood actors known as the Hollywood 10 that are accused of being communists, and they're run out. And there are going to be a ton of other examples of this where people are going to be blacklisted, and blacklists are these lists of people who are suspected to be communists. And if you're put on a blacklist, your life is basically ruined, and you can't get a job, you can't you can't be a part of society because everybody thinks that you're trying to overthrow the government. Now, another example of the Red Scare is Senator Joseph McCarthy, or what we'll call McCarthyism. And he was doing this inside the government. He was pointing fingers at people all over the place and accusing government officials of being communists. And most of it was totally false. And he would make his worst mistake when he would actually accuse people in the military of being communist, and then that would get taken to a trial, and eventually Joseph McCarthy would be exposed for what he was really doing, and most of his accusations being false. Moving on to another big fear in the United States at this time was the fear of being attacked by a new type of weapon. This new type of weapon, the H-bomb, or the nuclear bomb, is going to become a reality because the United States is going to develop one, as well as our enemies in the Soviet Union. The Soviets are going to test their first nuclear bomb in 1953, and people in America are going to freak out over this. People are going to begin to build bomb shelters, and the government is going to release a series of videos to inform people of what to do when an atomic bomb hits and how to survive if one does. The most famous of these videos was known as the duck and cover video, and we'll take a look at that one in class. But these hydrogen bombs, or H-bombs, or nuclear weapons can be up to 1,000 times more powerful than an atomic bomb. So the fear was real there if one of these would ever to be used in an actual scenario, in an actual fight with the Soviet Union. Now, moving on to more of a positive side of the Cold War here, is when a new leader takes over in the Soviet Union. Joseph Stalin, after leading the Soviets for many years, is going to die, and the guy who replaces him is a man by the name of Nikita Khrushchev, and he'll take over in 1953. And one of his main goals is to improve relations with the United States, to try to open up communication back and forth, to be able to resolve some of these issues that we're having through the use of diplomacy or just talking things out. But it's a great idea, but what's going to happen in the end is that this new hope for peace between the U.S. and the Soviet Union is going to be lost when the Soviet Union catches us spying on them, and they're actually going to shoot down one of our spy planes, known as a U-2 spy plane. And you can see this U-2 spy plane in the picture here, as well as the picture of Nikita Khrushchev there. Now, the final thing that I want to discuss here in this video is the space race. Now, for a number of years, both the Soviet Union and the United States desired to be able to send satellites into space. Now, we're not even close to the point yet of sending a man into space, but just to put something out there. And so we begin to develop satellites, and the Soviet Union is actually going to develop the first satellite ever to be put in space, and that is the satellite known as Sputnik. And Sputnik basically went off into space. It sent a radio signal back, and not much else. But people, again, were scared of what Sputnik could do. Could it launch rockets? Did it have a giant camera on it? Who knows? But ultimately, it was just an experimental device that proved that we could put something into space. Now, on the other side, here in America, we sent our first satellite, well, at least tried to send our first satellite with that of Vanguard. And Vanguard was a huge failure. Vanguard actually went up a few feet and actually exploded when we were trying to launch it. So it would be some time after Sputnik that the United States would actually be able to send our first satellite out into space. Now here you can see Sputnik, a very well put together satellite, and then in the final picture here you've got the satellite of Vanguard.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade.
Less than 7 years after President John F. Kennedy uttered those words, the United States space program put a man on the moon. The story of America's moon quest is a successful tale of vision, courage, and dynamic technological innovation. It's also one of politics. When John F. Kennedy made his first speech about landing a man on the moon in May 1961, another country was actually ahead of the United States in space exploration. That country was the Soviet Union. In October 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite into space. Less than 4 years later, the Soviets became the first nation to send a man into space. Already in the midst of the Cold War, the two nations now had a new front for their battle: space.